What would you say if I told you that there's no such thing as high self-esteem or low self-esteem? You just may have blocked access to your self-esteem. I'm Matt Gil, and welcome to another episode of Mornings with Matt. You know, oftentimes we hear people talk about living with high self-esteem or low self-esteem, and maybe they don't have high or low. Maybe they're just walking around with blocked access to their self-esteem. And I want to introduce you to a concept that I believe there's no such thing as high self-esteem or low self-esteem. That truly what's happening is some of us are living with blocked access to that self-esteem. I believe that when we were all created, we were created equal. You were given the same amount of courage that I was given, that he was given the same amount of trust that she was given. I believe that we were all created with the same amount of courage, of trust, of love, of boldness, of tenacity, that all of us have the same amount of everything, but something happened along the way in our journey. Something happened to us as a child that was either said to us or done to us that created a shift that began to block access to our courage, to our trust, to our ability to keep pushing through during the tough times. Something happened that began to block us from our self-esteem. It didn't go anywhere, it just got blocked. And then we started to believe it, so we started to block it ourselves. You know, we have so much limiting beliefs that have stopped us from trying to take on new challenges, that have stopped us from starting new relationships, from starting that new career, or maybe even going back to school. Think back for a moment, like what are some of the stories, what are some of the limiting beliefs that you tell yourself that are things that have, as a result of something that was done or said to you a long time ago? You see, by saying that somebody has more of or less of their self-esteem is making an assumption that somebody has more or less of something and we're all the same. I truly believe, as I said before, that we are created equal. And I know from my own personal journey, moving past the chaos, moving past the hurt that I had created, the times that I wanted to speak up that I didn't say anything, that I just sat in silence and knew that I wasn't congruent with how I was showing up. I believe that I didn't have self-esteem, but really all I did was I was listening to the stories that I was telling myself. So this week, as you go through your week, I want you to be aware of the conversations that you're telling yourself. What are you saying to you? Like if you had just a little bit more access to your self-esteem, what are some of the things that you would start doing? Like, would you go out for that job? Would you go back to school? Would you have a tough conversation? Would you speak up for yourself in a relationship where you feel like you're not being heard or you're being mistreated or you just want to be able to stand up for you? What would you start doing? For me, I know that I would start getting up and actually going out to the gym. You know, I have a conversation, a negative self-talk that tells me that that I'm not like everybody else that's there, that's working out. They're more fit, they have more energy than I do. So if I had 5% more access to my self-esteem, I would start getting up and actually going to the gym. I would start shopping better for the food that I was eating. I would start really spending my time around the people that raise me up versus drain me and bring me down. But I want you to also ask yourself this question: what would you stop doing? A lot of times we're doing stuff in our day-to-day that are causing us to live in that limiting belief, live in that frustration, live in that moving forward. So what would you stop doing? What are the things, what are the behaviors, what are the thinking processes that you need to stop to keep moving you forward? Listen, this conversation is designed for you and I to have a dialogue, for me to share my opinion, you to share yours, and for us to work together and celebrate together. So make sure and leave a comment below. Let me know, what are some of the things that you would start doing this week if you had a little bit more access to your self-esteem, or what would you stop doing? I love reading your comments and I love the engagement that we have in here. So Listen, I'm your brother in possibility and abundance, and we'll see you next time.